Today we are talking about headhunting strategy, whether that is a reference to you being a recruiter in-house or being a recruiter as a third party at a recruitment firm or even as a freelancer. But either way, the principle remains the same, and that is between the sweet crossover between the industry verticals and your competitors. So let's talk about it. Now, let's say this is competitor A, competitor B, competitor C, you, and competitor D. Now, when we say vertical industry verticals, we're talking about supply chain. So you source the raw material from where? Agriculture, correct? Whether it's animal farming or whether it's growing produce, right? Now then that goes down to manufacturing, right? So manufacturing is where they tend to have low margins, but they're selling in bulk. Why are they selling in bulk? Because they are the brand owners and they can sell anywhere in the world as long as they adhere to local laws and registration and the regulations, which includes local FDA requirements, Food and Drug Administration, as well as international compliance in terms of logistics, transportation, customs control, and so on and so forth. Now, when we go down to distributors, all right? Distributors are not the brand owners, but they are the ones that have been given exclusive territory rights on sales from the manufacturer in terms of brand rights. So that is us. We are the distributor. Correct? I was using green, I'm sorry, I used black. Now, distributor. We're often given markets like the UAE, Jordan, Hungary, Vienna, Austria, maybe the UK, maybe parts of the UK, maybe parts of the US. Like if you have your warehousing established, if you have vans, if you have a distribution force, sales, contacts with key accounts at retailers, wholesalers, and so on and so forth, they're likely to give you the agency because you're already set up, you've already invested, you already have the resources to make things happen and happen fast. You probably already have connections with the FDA, so in terms of registering a new product that you want to bring to the market, you can get it to move along faster because you know who to talk to and what to talk to. You know the process of the government aspect of importing new products, and that helps expedite processes a lot faster in terms of launching new products in new markets. That being said, we go down to wholesale. All right, now wholesalers tend to help distributors expand into bigger market territories whenever they're weak. For example, you could be a specialized wholesaler specializing in pharmaceutical channel. Okay, the pharmaceutical channel is all the retail pharmacies in an area or across the board. However, distributors might be stronger with, like, let's say, a hypermarket or supermarkets, right? So when they know that they're weak in a certain area, they'll work with a wholesaler to distribute to areas that they're weak in. That's when you work with a wholesaler. Then you go down to retailers. Now, retailers are fantastic because you know where they are, you know where their locations are, you know how to sell to them, you know exactly which purchasing managers to talk to, and that tends to change very little. So when the distributor works with them, they assign them a key account. Especially if the bigger they are, that's going to happen. If it's a small supermarket, just like in your neighborhood, they're probably going to send something called a cash van where they do a cash basis, and it's small transactions and it's affordable in terms of cash. Now, when we go down here to the e-commerce and affiliate marketeers tend to make their money through commission sales, and if they are an influencer and you give them a UTM link to share with their audience, they could end up making a lot of money through referrals. Now, when you get e-commerce, the combination of an affiliate marketeer or influencer redirecting their audience to your e-commerce store, you're going to see a massive spike in sales, direct sales, while not having to share the margin with the retailers, wholesalers, and distributors. We don't advise that because it's never nice or ethical to compete against your own customers. And if you do that, at least have the same retail selling price as the rest of the market, to be fair. Now, in terms of headhunting, all right, now that we've gotten a general idea, let's talk about headhunting. The salary scales in agriculture are going to be very low, very low. Manufacturers, although their margins are low, let's say they're a matured manufacturer and they've expanded to many territories, a matured manufacturer will have some of the highest salary scales in the entire industry verticals. And the reason is, despite their low margins, they are reaching markets far and wide, and they're working through distributors, so they didn't have to continue making investments in vans and distribution force. So then you talk about distributors, as we mentioned, they tend to have respectable salaries, but I wouldn't compare them to a matured manufacturer's salary scales. And before we go any further, what's the difference between a matured and let's say startup? Okay, a startup is a manufacturer that is still developing their product. They're still, or let's say the range of products, and they're still trying to access all these markets. Remember, they have small margins. So if their sales aren't large enough, they're not going to be making enough money to enjoy the luxury of being a brand owner. Okay? So let's say they're in Jordan, they're in the UAE, they've found enough distributors to distribute to the entire USA. Wow, they're making a lot of money. But that's not going to be the case for a startup manufacturer or brand development. They're probably going to just start with their local area, let's just say Texas for now. Just Texas. That's still respectable salary, but it's not enough to consider the largest salaries in the industry. All right. That being said, that's the difference. So, until a startup contacts a distributor to help them expand, they're not going to be expanding their market size and their overall sales. Then we talk about retailers, we talk about e-commerce, we talk about e-affiliate, all that nonsense. Now, let's say you are right here. You're a distributor in the industry and you want, let's say, to build your own brand and switch into becoming a manufacturer. That's the intention of this headhunting project. The intention of this headhunting project means that you will need to find one of your competitors who closely aligns with what you're trying to achieve and a headhunt from, let's say, manufacturer C in the parallel supply chain, your competitor's supply chain, not your supply chain. So you go to your competitor's supply chain, which means now you've headhunted this person, which means now, more than likely, ideally, you also now have gained the same resources as manufacturer C from the agriculture aspect, which means now you're sourcing the same raw materials. Now, that's assuming you want to build your own factory and so you're just headhunting. An alternative, of course, is to collaborate or partner with a competitor in, let's say, a different market, but the same industry. So now we'll call that AZ. So now you're working with the manufacturer with his own agriculture kind of supply chain and everything. This guy, we call him a white label. Okay, now you're not disrupting anyone else's supply chain, but you are collaborating with someone else. So if you don't have enough money to set up an entire factory or an entire industrial program, then you work with someone who already is and doesn't mind putting your label on their products, or if you have your own formula, using your own formula and your own, let's say, packaging just for the sake of making extra cash. So this guy benefits from making more money from you, and you benefit from building your own brand, and over time you'll end up building your own factory. That being said, if you're on a budget and you need help with sales and marketing and God knows what, the ideal situation is actually to headhunt from one of your competitors' supply chains under wholesalers or retailers. The problem with this is going to be a lack of knowledge. What does a lack of knowledge mean? It means that although you're saving money on salaries and you're able to onboard someone at your salary scales in your business, this person has only been exposed to retail or to wholesale. So now you need to educate them a little bit further on everything else. And that's fine. It's expected that there's always going to be skill gaps. And the best sort of training for any kind of employee is called on-the-job training. On-the-job training, which means they have a more senior person in the department guiding them, mentoring them, coaching them while they're learning and developing and working and delivering. That's the best way for adult learners to acquire new information and to start hitting the ground running as soon as possible. And the combination is, remember, this is the rule of thumb. You're on a budget, you hire from wholesalers or lower. If you are trying to develop your own supply chain on the up end of the scale, you headhunt from your competitors' supply chain in terms of manufacturers and agro, depending on how much you're willing to invest and how much cash you have. If you don't have enough cash to invest and so on, but you're desperate to start your own brand, I recommend through another country's manufacturer in the same industry, a white label partnership. And that's it. Which means if you do a white label partnership, you still need to hire someone from here to be the correspondent between your product development, your chemist, let's say you need a chemist to build a formula, and the white label manufacturers. There needs to be someone who knows how to speak the language of product development and the manufacturer. And that's about it. I hope I added value to your day. And this is the reason why you should work with Spartan Services for Consulting, because we don't approach it as a transactional situation. We approach it as a partnership situation for the long run. We go into the details and the science of industry in order to deliver the optimal results to you. And yes, we are more expensive, but that's the reason why. Peace out.